The 14th World Forestry Congress gets underway in Durban, officially on Monday, the 7th of September. In the lead-up to the event, a scientific forestry symposium will be held by the Minister of Science and Technology, Naledi Pandor. That's on this week, Friday, the 4th of September. The Congress will see a variety of high-level plenaries involving local and visiting ministers, as well as a host of heads of international agencies. This year's key debates will deal with international forest and water dialogue, climate change, South Africa's working on fire program, the media's role in mobilizing political support, and wood energy in Africa, to name a few of the points. Now, I'm joined this morning by the Secretary General of the World Forestry Congress here in South Africa, Mr. Trevor Abrams. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Eben. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm very good today. It's very difficult to deal with climate change and rhinos dying and all sorts, but it's nice to see that you're at least mobilizing.
Yes, I mean, we're very happy to be hosting this event. It's in fact the first time in Africa that the World Forestry Congress comes here since 1926. It's been held every 6 years, but this is the first time in Africa.
Crucial times for Africa's environment. We see droughts, we see all kinds of climate change scenarios. Why is this World Forestry Congress going to be so important for the African continent?
I think the Congress is assuming a very important role in broad global policy making, because as you've said, you know, it's taking place in the context of climate change, and there's no longer debate about climate change. We're living it. We're seeing the fires, we're seeing the droughts. Right now there's a report that the El Nino will be the worst ever this year coming up. So it's a very important moment for us because, as you may know, forests do present a mitigating force in climate change. It absorbs carbon dioxide, it releases oxygen. So it's a critical component of ensuring sustainability for the planet and certainly for Africa in general.
Is there a difference between natural forest and man-made forests in that context?
There's a very big difference in terms of the natural forest and obviously plantation forests. And each have a particular role. You know, I think, you know, one of the issues that you mentioned that also has to come into play is the issue of water. So where one does, you know, engage in plantation forestry, it has to be balanced in terms of the water needs and the type of species, etc. But it's a critical part of our economy. I mean, if you look at our housing, our roof trusts all come from our forests.
Yeah.
And if that were not to be there, the cost of housing would in fact go up significantly. So it's part of our life. We sit on forests. We eat off forest, we write on forest, and, you know, I think not many of us know that, you know, there's even clothes that are being made from cellulose in forest. In our tablets, the cellulose is put into it, so it's a very important part.
Do we take our forests too much for granted, or is there a certain amount of apathy with regards to the role that it plays in?
I think forests have been the stepchild, certainly in our country, of sort of public consciousness. We don't necessarily understand all the value it gives to our society. We don't understand even the food chain, if you like, of all the kind of products that come from forest, our packaging, etc. But I think, as I've indicated earlier, this particular moment has given forests an increased importance. Because we're confronted by this effect of climate change, the carbon emissions. And this is our carbon sink. This absorbs our carbon, you know. So it is a very important, and by and large, governments world over have, you know, not because it's a natural asset. It's a natural asset, occurring asset. Up north, where they harvest their natural forests, they don't plant. They just go on to harvest and move on. And it grows back again. And that's why our timber is so expensive. We have to actually plant it.
Maybe that is a discussion point. But the seriousness of this matter is really put forward, and government is taking it very seriously, this Congress. The President is going to be there. The head of the AU is going to be there. It's serious business, really.
Yes, it's a very serious Congress. Our President is opening the Congress, and the outcome of this Congress, which is in fact a broad church of bodies, you know, it's government, it's industry, it's civil society, it's students, academics, is to take the consensus to the UN General Assembly, where they're debating the post-2050 Sustainable Development Goals, the COP21 in Paris, the climate change talks, and also the FAO Council in December, also in Rome. So it's literally feeding into the global policy making.
You mentioned COP21 in Paris this year. Now, a lot is expected to happen in Paris. Almost the world is hanging its hat on COP21 in Paris. What are you sending from the Congress per se? Are you making a direct link to COP21, or are you going to work via the UN? And what's the message that you're sending?
In fact, we have a very specific session where our Minister of Environment Affairs, Minister Edna Molewa, will also be participating on forest and climate change. So obviously, the kind of conclusions, the kind of sentiments that are going to be part of the platform that this Congress is going to, in fact, take to Paris in a very direct manner.
Do we need to change the way we think on the African continent around forests and trees in particular? And what should that change be, and where should we start implementing?
Well, you know, Africa is fairly well endowed in terms of forests, particularly the central part, you know. So as we often hear about the Amazon, this is our big carbon sink here. Unfortunately, it hasn't had the kind of policy attention that it deserves. And in fact, there are areas where there's serious plundering of Africa's hardwood going, many of it going unprocessed towards the east at the moment. So this conference is, we hope, in the Africa Day segment, we're going to be highlighting the particular challenges facing Africa, alerting the kind of policy imperatives to our policymakers and government, and hopefully from that we'll get a more sustained attention and policy framework for ensuring sustainability of forests, because I think that is the game. We are not, this is not about don't touch our forests. We're talking about managing our forest in a sustainable manner.
Sustainability, it's a buzzword of the 21st century. We need to create for what comes after us. The ultimate consumer of all time is humanity, isn't it? Mr. Abrams, thank you for joining us today. Trevor Abrams is the Secretary General of the World Forestry Congress. It's being held in Durban, and I can tell you we will pop in there once or twice more over the next 7 or 8 days to get an update, what's happening, what the discussion points are. There's some interesting discussions. One of them I'm quite interested in is the media's role in mobilizing political support for our forests. Yes, there's a role for all of us to play.